Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're opening up a file that, well, it was really not meant for public consumption.
Not at all.
We're looking at a document that's so high stakes, so predictive, it feels less like analysis and more like a tactical guide that's being used right now. We are talking about a highly confidential internal investment memo. It was passed around between senior partners at a major firm, and it's dated January 4th, 2026.
And that date is so crucial. This isn't some academic theory about, 2035.
Right.
This is an instruction manual. It's based on market changes they see happening right now. The memo's title is The End of the Corporation as We Know It.
And the core idea, it just challenges every single assumption we've had about business value for, the last century?
Easily.
Absolutely. Because for decades, the metric for huge success was headcount, right? You wanted to build a billion-dollar company.
You needed a 1,000-person team, at least.
Exactly. You had to manage all that complexity, the HR, the enormous overhead.
Right.
This memo basically takes that entire model and throws it in the dumpster.
Yeah.
So what is this revolutionary structure they're hunting for in 2026?
They predict not just predict, they state the inevitable emergence of the one-person unicorn.
A one-person unicorn.
It's the new Holy Grail, a company that hits a staggering $1 billion valuation, but it's run by a single human founder.
Okay.
And this is the kicker. Operating with a permanent staff of precisely 0 full-time human employees. Not 5, not a dozen contractors, 0.
0. And the speed of this shift is the whole reason for the memo's urgency. So our mission for you is to get past the shock and really unpack why this is happening now.
Yeah, how the new AI tools make it inevitable.
And what this radical change means for how value is created and distributed in this new economy.
Yeah.
Let's unpack this.
The memo's opening line is almost philosophical. It claims we're on the precipice of the most significant structural shift in business history.
Bigger than the internet.
That's the claim. Because the very definition of scale has fundamentally changed.
Right. If you think about the 20th century, there was this almost sacred rule for scaling a business. To get bigger, you had to hire more people, period. Double your revenue, you probably had to double your sales team, your support staff, your managers.
And that fixed correlation is exactly what the memo says is now, and they use this word, broken.
Broken.
They call that old way of thinking the human capital trap. The focus isn't on how many smart people you can hire anymore. It's about how much computational power you can leverage.
I think that phrase, compute capital, just reframes the whole conversation.
It really does.
Because if the main capital you're using is, flexible, programmable silicon and cheap code, not people, the entire physics of business just changes.
It has to. And compute capital, they define it as, processing power and specialized AI APIs. It scales infinitely, instantly, and its cost is always trending towards 0.
Unlike human labor.
Exactly. It's the difference between buying a server rack once and hiring 50 people forever.
So if that link between revenue and headcount is severed, what happens to those old investor metrics? Like, what about revenue per employee?
It becomes irrelevant, and investors are being explicitly warned not to use it as a key signal anymore.
How so?
Well, if a software agent handles 80% of your sales, is it an employee? Of course not. It's an asset you buy with a subscription or an API call. The employee is now software.
And software scales without needing vacation days or a 401k.
Right. So the new metric they're being trained to look for is something like return on compute capital.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
If you're building a system that needs 0 managers, 0 sales teams, no HR, the only human you actually need is the person who designed the whole system. So if the CEO isn't managing people, what does the job description even look like now?
And that brings us to their new founder archetype, the hyper-individual. They are not a traditional CEO, obsessed with org charts and quarterly reviews. They're an architect.
An architect. That implies a really different skill set. It's not about emotional intelligence or motivating a team.
No, it's about systems thinking. Their job is purely strategic, to design these intricate logic flows that autonomous AI agents then go and execute. They don't manage workers. They design the work itself.
They're building a machine that runs itself.
Precisely. And the output of that machine is what the memo calls agent swarms. These aren't just single bots. Think of them as interconnected autonomous AIs.
So AIs talking to other AIs.
Exactly. To execute these really complex end-to-end business tasks without the architect ever having to get involved in the day-to-day weeds.
Okay, I need a little more clarity on that. When they say the architect designs logic flows, what does that actually look like? Are they just writing a huge, complex prompt?
It's way beyond prompting. The memo suggests the architect is more like assembling and programming these modular AI services. They're tying together a specialized language model for writing with a predictive engine for finance and an agent for execution.
So they set the rules.
They define the governance, the rules of engagement. They tell the agents how to talk to each other and what success looks like. It's like writing the metacode for a digital organism, telling it how to survive and grow on its own.
So the human gets the high-level strategy, and the AI swarms handle all of the tactical execution and, I guess, self-correction. The memo gives some really powerful examples of this. Let's start with marketing. That usually costs a fortune.
Oh, yeah. The marketing function is just completely swallowed by the swarm. The memo describes an agent swarm for growth that handles everything. Content generation, ad design, ad buying on Google and Meta, complex SEO.
And it adjusts itself.
In real time. It tracks ROI and shifts the budget automatically. It does this 24/7, instantly reallocating compute resources based on what's working and what's not.
Which just eliminates the need for a creative director, a media buyer, an SEO guy.
Yeah.
All those people who need meetings to get aligned.
The swarm is the alignment. And then you have customer support, which is a huge labor cost and causes so much burnout. Handled by a large language model, an LLM, that they describe as having infinite patience and memory. The advantage isn't just cost, it's the quality of service. Imagine a customer never has to wait on hold.
And never gets an agent who's having a bad day.
Right. And their agent instantly remembers every single interaction that customer has ever had with the company.
It's a massive differentiator.
Mm-hmm.
And what about the product itself? How does this thing iterate without a human engineering team?
The coding is done by AI engineers that never sleep. The architect designs the feature, and the coding swarm handles the rest. Writing the code, testing, bug fixes, deployment. If a bug pops up in the live product, the system can self-diagnose and deploy a patch in minutes.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because if the architect is just feeding it strategic commands, and the swarms are flawlessly running marketing, sales, support, and engineering all at once, the entire traditional corporate structure, the silos, the meetings, the reporting lines, it just melts away. The human founder becomes the single point where all the profit and strategy is captured.
And that simplicity, that's what leads directly into the financial side of this, which is maybe the most mind-blowing part of the whole memo.
Okay.
They use the term ghost org to describe these zero-employee companies. And when you look at their projected economics, they make traditional business margins look, well, pathetic.
I mean, even a really successful traditional software company, a SaaS company, they're running maybe 70–80% gross margins. And that's considered world-class.
The one-person unicorn, the ghost org, is predicted to operate with 95 to 99% margins.
99%? That sounds almost made up. I have to be a little skeptical here. Surely even a ghost org has costs, right? What about legal risks or regulations?
That's a great question. And the memo does touch on the cost side. You're right. The cost isn't zero. You still have to pay for that compute capital.
The API fees?
Right. API fees to OpenAI or whoever.
Yeah. Cloud
Storage, data processing, maybe some legal compliance software. But those costs are predictable, they're scalable, and they usually run less than 5% of gross revenue. And that's before compute gets even cheaper.
So the core driver is just wiping out the massive cost of human labor.
That's it. The memo states it plainly. Compute is exponentially cheaper than human labor. You're swapping the huge, variable, messy cost of people, salaries, bonuses, health insurance, sick days, for the stable, scalable, and falling cost of compute cycles.
And that's where the zero overhead advantage kicks in for those 99% margins. The memo lists it all out. No office rent, no free lunches, no health insurance, no HR disputes.
And the big one, no middle management salaries eating up a third of your profit and loss statement.
This creates what they call a terrifying competitive advantage.
Terrifying is the right word. Think about it. A ghost org run by one person can look at a 500-person competitor in the same market and just undercut their prices by 50%.
And still be more profitable.
Substantially more profitable.
That kind of pressure is just not sustainable for a traditional business.
Yeah.
If you're running at 75% gross margins and your competitor's at 95% while selling a cheaper product, you can't win.
You can't. The memo basically says this will force every single industry to violently restructure or just collapse.
It's a systemic shift. If a more efficient path exists, the market will take it.
Regardless of the consequences for human jobs.
And that leads us to the biggest risk they identify in the memo, which is the group of workers who are most vulnerable here.
Yeah, the destruction of the middle manager class. They are the first and biggest casualty in this whole shift.
Why them specifically? Why not frontline workers?
Because the main job of a middle manager, a team lead, a director, was to be an information conduit. Their job was to manage the friction of passing data and tasks from the sales team to the engineering team to marketing.
They were the human API.
That's a great way to put it. And if the agent swarms can communicate instantly and perfectly with each other, that human layer whose job was just to coordinate, they become obsolete.
It's the ultimate middleman trap. If your job is to schedule meetings and pass along information, and the software does it automatically, you stop being a facilitator and you start being the most expensive piece of friction in the system.
And the financial result of that is a huge, dramatic consolidation of wealth. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the memo paints a really stark future for wealth distribution.
Right. The value gets captured at the very top.
At the top, and by the platform owners, they have this really chilling comparison. The old model, it spread the wealth around a bit, right? You had 1,000 employees, each earning $100,000.
Creating a broad middle class.
The new model concentrates it vertically. It's one founder, the architect, earning $100 million or more, and the rest of the value flows to the software providers.
Yeah.
The OpenAIs, the Anthropics, the Googles.
Yeah.
The owners of the compute capital.
That just completely changes who benefits from a successful company. The profit gets captured by the architect and the tech providers, and it completely bypasses the human labor that used to generate that value.
The value is still there, but the flow has been completely rerouted. And this leads right into the final actionable instructions for the investors. How should they change their behavior?
They have to stop celebrating the old signs of success. The memo is blunt about it. Stop looking for startups that brag about growing their team.
That's been totally inverted. In this new world, a large headcount isn't a sign of traction, it's a red flag.
It means you're inefficient.
Exactly. It indicates structural weakness. If you're hiring 50 people for a job that a $500 a month API could do, the firm sees you as already being at a disadvantage.
So who is the new target? The founder they're actively trying to find now.
Their new target is the solo capitalist. And they define this person with this almost mythological simplicity. The kid in a basement with a laptop and an API key who is disrupting an entire industry.
They're looking for leverage, not management.
Maximum leverage. The highest possible valuation tied to the lowest possible human cost.
It's a complete reversal of the investment thesis. Stop looking for the company that needs a giant campus. Start looking for the solo founder who built an autonomous, profitable empire in the cloud.
And the memo wraps up with this one final dramatic statement. It's impossible to ignore. It says, "The era of the company is ending. The era of the empire of one has begun."
Wow. Okay, so to synthesize all this, the fundamental shift is from managing people to designing logic. That's the new skill. We are talking about billion-dollar valuations with 0 employees and 99% margins becoming the new gold standard. So what does this all mean for the world we actually live in?
It means the entire purpose of a corporation is being ruthlessly optimized down to its core. And if the goal of a business is just maximizing profit, which this memo shows is done most efficiently with 0 employees, it raises a really big question for you to think about. Will the social responsibility of creating jobs just vanish from the definition of corporate success? If the most valuable company is the one that employs no one, where does the human element fit in, besides being that initial architect? That's something to mull over as these ghost orgs start appearing in every sector.
This was just the beginning. Stay tuned.